Hi, I'm Joanne Boyes. I'm the careers advisor that's linked to the School of Nursing and Midwifery, and this is a recording for Year 3 Burnley midwives. So if you're going to be applying for jobs in the next year and you're coming to the end of your course, this is a recording for you all about personal statements. I had hoped to tell you this in person, but for some reason that didn't work out, so I'm doing you a recording instead. If you are not a year 3 midwife, you're welcome to watch this too, but hopefully I'll get to meet you in person as well. Okay, so this is the detail of what I'm doing this morning. I like to work on giving good quality practical advice, using your time well, and it's what's based on what most people say most of the time. There can be different opinions in terms of applying for jobs, interviews, people have their own ideas, so I tell you what most people say most of the time. And I want you to feel like you're in control of what you're doing, like you feel good, like you've got this basically. Applying for opportunities can feel daunting, and I want you to feel as confident as you can about it. I also want to point out there's a link there for the Royal College of Midwifery. They've got some excellent careers advice pages too. So if you've never looked at that, I would encourage you to have a look at their advice too. So the main focus on this is about personal statements, but there's also a little bit about where to look for vacancies, because that's obviously where you start off, and also a bit on graduate outcomes. But we're going to look at how to approach personal statements, supporting statements for jobs, how to be aware of structuring it and using STAR. It can take time to write a personal statement, so I think it's worthwhile to have a formula, a way of approaching it to make it as efficient as possible. It does take time though, so have a think about how you might want to manage this. I know that particularly midwives, while you're studying, you've got placements and everything else, so you're very, very busy. So think about how you can manage this around everything else that you're doing as I'm going through this, and I'll share some ideas at the end. So, firstly, then, where to look for vacancies. So, if you've got a particular trust you want to work for, definitely look on their careers pages. So, most trusts, sometimes individual hospitals, have their own careers jobs pages and vacancies come up there. So, have a look there. I like to use the NHS jobs website just because I'm used to it. I'm familiar with how it works. But there's also NHS jobs, which is linked directly into Track, and I know a lot of people like to use that. It tends to be that the same jobs come up in the same places, but I would definitely say if you're interested in a particular trust, check on their website, see what's coming up. To make sure you're aware of any changes and any sort of developments there. But most people, I think, tend to either use NHS jobs or the Track Jobs pages. If you find anywhere else that works for you, brilliant, use that. If you're not finding places to look for jobs, come and talk to us. Now, one of the key things about looking for opportunities is that sometimes for NHS jobs, they have an idea that they'll only look at a limited number of applications, and once their submissions for the job reaches that number, they will actually close the job. So they might give a deadline, so they might give a deadline in 2 weeks' time, but they might think, well, we only want to look at 50 applications or 100 applications, whatever number that trust decides. I suppose that given that it's managers, but they're not just looking at jobs, they've got all the other things to do in their job. If they think we only want to look at so many applications, once that number's reached, we'll close the job. It doesn't always seem fair. It can be tricky to manage, but the key thing is that you need to know about it so that you can manage it and you can approach it. So basically, if you see a job, you need to apply well, but you don't need to delay. So if you're the kind of person that leaves submitting all your assignments until like the day it's due, you need to get your head around a different way of working for jobs and try to submit it in advance because sometimes they do close. In terms of when to apply, sometimes they might give dates in the advert for when they want people to apply for a particular vacancy. And when they want them to start. So you might need to think about that in terms of when your course finishes. But often they'll wait longer than students expect. So if it's a band 5 job, which is what most midwives would apply for first, in fact, everybody would go for band 5 to start off with, and they know that people could be applying from the end of the course. You've got to finish your course before you can actually start. So they'll sometimes work with that. And there's often a contact person. So you can contact that person if you're not sure and just send them an email and say, I'm interested in this role. I'm due to complete my course and qualify on this date. Would that fit in with your job? And then you'll have an idea. If in doubt, though, I would say apply, because the only thing that's certain is if you don't apply, you're not going to be in with a chance of the job. When you apply, it's normally on track. I prefer using NHS jobs just because I'm familiar with it, really. You try different websites, see what you like. But if you go into the search, you can search for what you're after. So obviously midwife. You can put a particular place you want to be. So I'll put Burnley. You have to spell it right, obviously. Burnley, got it 5th time round. And you might put a certain distance. If you've got an idea of a particular trust you're interested in, obviously you could put that distance. Now, I know that for today, because I'm just looking at randomly, I just want to make sure some things come up. So I'm just going to search nationally, just see what's here. Another tip is that you can search by pay grade to get the band 5 jobs coming up. So we've done that. And applying the filters. So here we go. So 56. So this is national. And obviously you can do your search area wherever you want to be. You will get quite a lot that are bank, and then you get permanent ones as well. So I'm just going to click on this one because it's near the top. Probably not an area people are interested in, but just as an example. So closing date for this is actually tomorrow as I'm recording this. So by the time you watch this, it's probably not going to be live anymore anyway. But I just wanted you to be aware of the layout on here that I like. So it tells you when they've posted it, tells you when it's closing. Obviously this one they've decided to either look at all applicants or they've not closed it early because they haven't had enough people applying. Read to see what's involved in the job, where it is, because this is going to be useful for later on. And then the contact person is here. So if you've had any queries about, will you wait till I've finished my course, or, you know, anything about the job, then you could contact them. You don't want to be asking anything too specific, you know, what day would I start? Where would I put my coat? You know, things like that. Some questions you'd wait until you were offered the job and you started. But if there's something big that would stop you from applying, that is a major thing, like courses finishing, or for example, this one says there's part-time hours available, you might want to say, well, what do you mean by part-time hours? I would like to work whatever you prefer. Would that work for you? You know, those sorts of queries that are make or break factors for you applying for the job. So it gives you an overall idea. And then the other key things are finding the job descriptions. So JDPS usually means job description and person specification, and that's some specific information you're going to need to find to do your supporting statement. So I like this because they're all laid out in the same way. It's easy to find what you're looking for, and it's all very straightforward. So let's look at some job descriptions and person specifications now. So for this one, they've got it as a Word document. Sometimes it's a PDF. Sometimes it links into a live document on a website. It just depends. So this one, band 5, they want a preceptorship midwife, newly qualified. This is the job description. You're in the right place. Now, these are often quite long. So I can see this one's 8 pages long. So you need to be in a frame of mind of having time to look at this properly. So you'd be reading through it and getting an idea of the mission and values. You'll need that for your application later on. What they actually want you to do in this job. Obviously, old midwives have a lot of things in common with what they do, and it's to do with people having the babies, but there can be different aspects to that, different places, different environments, different needs, they can vary. So do take time to read through this and see what their perspective is and what's involved in this job, where you fit into things, what you're going to be involved in, and so on. So it's all really useful, and have a good look at this. But what I'm kind of fast forwarding to is this last bit, because this is often right at the end, and this is really key for when you're doing your application. You need to find the person specification, because these criteria are the things they will be using to decide who to interview, and what you need to get across is going to be based on these criteria, basically. Okay, so you need to find this. Okay, so when you find your job you want to apply for and look on track, this often, no matter where you find your job, they'll link through to track. I haven't seen any that don't link through to track. Even if they don't, there'll be something like this. So there's a supporting statement about why you were applying for that job, and it's 1,500 words. So it says on here, in this section, you need to demonstrate what you have read about the published person specification, how you meet the essential and where relevant desirable criteria for this post if it hasn't been fully covered in previous sections. Please include your reasons for applying, take the opportunity to highlight your particular talents and strengths, what you can personally offer, what's unique to you, what sets you apart from your peers. You don't need to duplicate information that's already elsewhere. So the reason it's important to know about not duplicating is that there's not that much space here. You've got to write in quite a concise way, and a lot of people find there's more to say than they've got space to write. So it can be a bit of a challenge to fit it all in. So it's basically based on the person specification. So you need to read the person's specification and think about how you meet those criteria. So it's not your personal story. It's not about why you want to be a midwife generally. It's just about those criteria for this individual job. So it's how they're going to decide who they're going to invite for interview. You need to show you've read up on their specific role. You need to match what they particularly want, and show that you've considered also why that particular trust. So remember, it's kind of their wish list, but it's what they're going to mark everybody else against. So we've looked at a person specification. You've got an idea of some of the things in there. Let's talk more about how they actually use it. Often, they will actually mark each criteria. So this is an example of how they might score it. It might just be simply yes or no, but that can make it difficult to determine between, maybe 15 different candidates who all meet the same number of yeses. So sometimes they will actually score them 0 to 3, so something like this. So 0 if you don't meet the criteria, 1 if it's partially met in some way, 2 if you meet it, 3 if you exceed it, if you'd give a brilliant answer. And you need to try and put something for both the essential and the desirable criteria if you can. Even partially meeting it is better than putting nothing about it. And when you've got an idea of this, imagine if there's 50 people who submit applications for this. They don't want to interview 50 people. They might think, right, we're going to interview 5 or 6. So they'll score everybody that applies, and then they will just decide to interview the ones with the high scores who meet all the essential criteria as well, based on this kind of scoring system. Now, a lot of the criteria are skills. So it's worth knowing about this structure for talking about skills or competencies, which is called the STAR approach. So you might have seen this before. It's not just a midwifery thing. It's not just a UCLan thing. Lots of employers and lots of companies use it. So STAR just stands for the first letters of each of the titles. So S is the situation, T is the task, A is the action, and R is the result. Now, because you haven't got a huge amount of space to write about how you meet the criteria in the track system, you won't be able to elaborate at great length on this. You'll be able to use it more and talk in much more detail in your interviews. But I think it's worth having this in mind for when you're giving examples, just to give you a structure to not miss anything out in your statements as well. So you're probably not going to be able to write big long paragraphs and big explanations of all the things in here, but if you just make sure I've explained what's happening, where it is, what was going in, how I've shown this, what action I was taking, it just gives you some pointers and a structure to make sure you make it readable, make it relevant, make it understandable for anybody that's looking at your application. So on the screen here, there's a link. That link won't work, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube. But if you grab the presentation from the other pages, you can use the links on there. So you don't use STAR for things like short introductory or closing paragraphs, education qualification sections, other criteria like full driving license. You know, you don't need STAR for that. It's just for the competencies. And just to reiterate, this is from a local employer. This is what they're saying. You know, use our person specification. The same examples will come up, the same skills will come up in different jobs, but they want to know it's definitely about their version of their job. So you need to make it about how they've worded it, how they've described it. They want to know about your placements. They want to know about anything a bit different or unusual you've been involved in. It can also come from other things as well. So placements are really key, and it's likely you'll be talking a lot about placements, but it could be other things you're talking about. So paid, unpaid work, social activities, as well as things from your actual course that you've learned as well. So there can be a variety of sources of information that you're drawing on for your application. Now, this was planned as a live session, but I'm sitting here on my own. So what I suggest you do is you just pause for 5 minutes, have a look through some of these and think about examples that you might use. So pause for 5 minutes and look at some examples. And assuming you've paused and now you're moving on, I was going to get you to think about this individually as well. So I've actually created a Word document that you'll find in the accompanying information that you can look at a big list of examples. Use that if you want to use a job you're interested in, look at those skills and think about those specifically as well. So in this slide, these are ones that typically come up. It might be that they've been described in a different way in the examples I've drawn on and put together for you or in an actual vacancy that you see. So think about how you can manage that as well. Okay, if I did see you, you're going to have a break. If you're on a break now, pause, off you go. Okay, but other thing I wanted you to know about is graduate outcomes. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what's this about? Now, because you are in year 3, this is just a good opportunity for me to let you know about this. And the Graduate Outcomes Survey is really key for anybody who's got anything to do with going to university, being part of a university, checking what's going on in universities. It's really key because what happens is it's the set of official statistics about what happens after people graduate. So this is some of the data that came from the most recent Graduate Outcomes Survey. You will notice that the date on this is 21-22, which I'll explain how that comes about in a moment. But you can see there's lots of useful information here about who's working, who's studying, what's going on. And it's really useful for people thinking about going to university to decide, well, is it for me? What's going to happen afterwards? How do I know what other people have done? This is key for all of that. So the way it works is that about 15 months after you've completed your course, you'll be contacted by Graduate Outcomes. Now, we're all taught and told over and over again to be really wary. If anybody that we don't know gets in touch with us and says, we're looking for getting your data, we want to know about you, we're all told to just switch off and go, no, we don't know who you are. No, thank you very much. So please be aware that Graduate Outcomes is a real thing. and this is the email that they have said they are going to use. So 15 months after you've completed your course, if that's going to be, say, in summer 2025, it's not going to be until 2027 when they're going to get in touch with you. So we're telling you about this early so that you've got an idea and hopefully you'll remember. So they will get in touch with you. It is a genuine thing. And it only takes 10 minutes to complete the survey. If you don't complete it, you might get contacted by phone as well. They might say they're from Graduate Outcomes, they might say they're from HESA, they might say from the Higher Education Statistics Agency. If you are not sure if it's a genuine person from that, obviously check it out online, make sure you know it's definitely that person. You can, check the validity of that with them directly, like you would your bank or whatever if you're not sure. But these are phrases that you might see. And we need to know about what happens. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this is that we don't actually get a huge proportion of people replying. So for this survey, there were 44% of people responded, which means that 56% of people didn't respond. So over half of all students that completed in this year, we don't know what happened. We don't know what the result was. So please bear in mind that when you've graduated, you are one of these people in the statistics. If you get contacted, be aware it's a real thing. We need to know what you're doing. Also, for midwives, it's likely that you're in a job because the statistics for midwives are generally very positive. So, obviously, it's a positive thing to tell us about. If you further study, whatever you're doing, let us know. Let Graduate Outcomes know, and then you can be part of those statistics. Okay, so back to the applications and supporting statements. So we've talked about where to find jobs. We've talked about how to approach planning for your personal statements. We've talked about STAR to talk about criteria and making it definitely match each individual vacancy. So next thing is how to set it out. So what I would suggest is use the same order that they use in the person specification. Talk about things in the same order. So if you've already completed an application, then you do another one and you seem to have all the right things, still change the order of what you're writing about to match the order of the new person specification because they can all be different. It would make life much easier if they all had exactly the same thing, but I'm afraid it's not usually like that. So make it match the same order of their person specification. So they're looking for their criteria and you're talking about them in the same order. Also, if you use the same terms, use the same words. So I know that throughout all your academic writing, you taught to put it in your own words. This is the opposite. If they've got working as a team as their criteria, finding working as a team is easier for them. So use the same phrasing rather than teamwork. I know it's not, that difficult, but if you imagine these people, they've been at work all day, they're trying to shortlist, they're busy, they're trying to do it quickly, they might be tired, they've looked at 50 already, make it easy to find the things they're looking for. Include examples as well. Don't just say, I did this on my placement. You need to explain how you did it, what was happening, what was the situation, what did you actually do? Spell out how your examples match the criteria that you're talking about. You need to speak to the word count. So we've got 1,500 words on track. If it's through another format for any reason, just check what the word count is. But if there's no word count, you don't need going on forever. 2 or 3 pages is probably enough if you want to make the most of not word count. And do include a paragraph at the start, just introducing yourself and explaining your motivation excuse me, for this individual job, not just for midwifery. So explain why they're interested, you're interested in that specific midwifery job. Okay. That's where all the information on the vacancy at the start comes in. You're using that, talking about their individual role rather than just becoming a midwife. If there's something that's either essential or desirable and you think you don't meet it, don't just ignore it, hoping they won't notice. If there's something that is similar from another setting, talk about it. So you might not have had a role in, I don't know, teaching other people something, but you might in a midwifery setting, but you might have been a team leader in a part-time job and been training other people. So there's sometimes you can use other settings to talk about some of the skills you've got and show you've got the potential to then demonstrate that also in a midwifery setting. Don't sort of write anything negative. Don't point out if you don't have experience. Um, if you think, well, I've really got nothing to say about this, say you're interested in it, you're happy to train in it, you're happy to develop your skills in that area. And if it's something you just think, I'm so stuck on it, I just don't know where to go with this criteria, talk to us in careers, and we can help you to think through, and you can book an application, check appointments to talk through the whole thing. If you're going for a band 5 job, sometimes it could be a newly qualified person at band 5, but band 5 has several stages. So it could also be somebody who's 1 or 2 years into the job. So they'll usually match where you're at anyway, but don't let it put you off if there's things that you've sort of working towards as well in that description. So an example of an introductory paragraph, you can put this into your own words. It's just to give you an idea. You might read this and think that's not how I'd explain it. I want to do it in my words. But just to give you an idea, I'll qualify as a midwife and give you dates. I'm very keen for my first job to be at this trust. Explain why it appeals to you. Say if you're particularly well suited to the role, can pick out something from the job description. So say something specific about why you want to do that particular job. So as I said, put this into your own words, but it just gives you an idea of how you might start off your introductory paragraph. And then you would go on to each of the criteria in order, if they're not mentioned elsewhere. A thing that can sort of come up sometimes is our reasons for doing jobs can be very practical. So it can be, I need to be close to home, I've got children, this is perfect for me. That's absolutely fine, but you don't mention that in the job. Unless it mentions in the job that you're on call or something and they want you to be in a specific geographical area, saying you want to work somewhere because it's convenient for you is not the way forward. So don't bring that into it. I know that realistically that's often why we all pick jobs, but it's got to be more about why the job itself appeals to you, not the location. So it can be that you've been there on placement or things like that, but it's got to be something more positive than it's easy, it's near home. So you could say how you want to be part of that trust. So not every trust is, at the pinnacle of their success. There's changes, there's things that aren't right. There could be the reports that have been negative in any way. So you can say you want to be part of that and that you want to, be part of improving things in a trust. Or could be things that link to what you've done on placement. So I was in this environment on placement. I saw this kind of work. It could be in the same place. It could be in a very similar environment somewhere else. So you really enjoyed that. Could be they got some specific facilities or services that they offer that you want to be involved in. It could be specific features of the local community. It could be very diverse. There could be lots of people from lots of different backgrounds. Could be all kinds of things to do with the variety, the challenges that come from a diverse local community. Could be quite a deprived area. There could be lots of contrasts in the community in that area that brings different varieties of people to the services. Could be working with particular specialist services or client groups. Could be that there's wider hospital services that link in with the midwifery services for some reason. Could be things like that there's a women's prison nearby, they offer services to them. Could be part of the preceptorship program. It could be that you've seen what they offer and it looks particularly good and that's why you want to start off your career with that trust. Could be the mission statements or values of the trust. Often they'll include that information in the job information. The one I just picked out and showed you earlier on in this recording did talk about their values and mission statement. So it could be part of your mission statement includes this aspect. I think that's really important. That's why I want to be part of that trust. Could be something else if it's genuine, if it's real, if it's, relevant, that's fine. Could be a combination of more than one of these things. But say something about why that employer as well. So again, some advice from one of the service managers. Um, on track, once you've completed one form, you don't have to fill in everything every time you do it. So you will need to make some changes to the statement, but once you've got your contact details in there, your address, your qualifications, all that kind of stuff, past work experience, that gets saved. So you don't need to do it all and all over again every single time. So that does make life easier. Remember that some things close early. Set up email alerts if that's offered on the particular website that you're using. So you can check back every week, maybe set yourself a time to have a look. But if you set up an email alert, if that's offered, then you'll know when jobs come in from that particular trust as well. Remember they can close early. Remember you want to try and make yourself stand out. So they said try and make an impact in the first few sentences. Showing that you've really thought about that particular trust is what is going to make an impact. So, don't put quotes in there, don't try and make it gimmicky in any way. Just show you've thought about that trust, you've thought about that job. That is what's going to make you stand out. This person at this point said they might have over 100 applications. Don't make it long, make it concise. Obviously, there's word counts anyway. And make it relevant for that post. I think I've said that about 40 times now, but that is the key thing. Don't just send the same thing to everybody and think, oh, it's all in there somewhere, it'll be fine. Make it relevant from that post. And, talk to people when you're on placements. If you're interested in coming back to work there, let them know that. Say, I've loved it here. Would there be any jobs coming up? If I'm finishing at this time, when might you advertise? How do I get to know about that? Talk to people. Get back in touch with people who've been on placements when you come into the end of the year. That is acceptable. You'll have to apply for the job, obviously, and then that makes it a fair situation. But use your contacts to know what's going on. If you've not been on the placement somewhere that you're interested in, then get in touch with HR. See if you can get some information from them. See if you can find out who the contact is at that organisation in advance to ask the same sort of questions. And definitely make use of the contact they give you on the job information. They give you that contact person for a reason. Use it. Use the time well, though. Look through all the information first and only ask additional questions, but do use it if you need to. Okay, so final bit about this is how we can help you. So we are mainly based in Preston, but we do have some days in Burnley as well where you can see us face to face. So if anybody wants to see us in Preston, they're very welcome. In Burnley, though, we have sort of ad hoc days. So if we're in doing something else, then we will be offering face-to-face opportunities as well, often to see us. And those appointments are listed as face-to-face in Burnley on our system Handshake. Because we can't offer face-to-face appointments every day in Burnley, a lot of people make use of online appointments. So they're available Monday to Friday. You can book when it's convenient to you and do it online and talk to us online, which works really well. We find that often students who can come and see us prefer to do it online just for convenience sake, and that's fine as well. It's up to you. Although a lot of students likes to see the advisor that they know, so you might be looking for Joanne Boyes because I'm giving you this presentation and you know that I'm linked to your school, that's great, but you can see any advisor. We're happy to see anybody from any subject area. And sometimes we appreciate that the times I'm available might not be when you're available, so you can book in with anybody. For UCLan Careers, our help is free for life. So once you've finished your course, you can still get in touch with us and chat to us about whatever you're doing in terms of careers and access help if needed. If we think for any reason we're not the best person to help, we wouldn't talk about that with you. But we do get people getting in touch, sometimes 5-10 years after they've left, and asking for advice on applications, CVs, talking through moving on. And we're absolutely happy to do that. But don't think, oh, I'll just leave it till I finish then. You know, it can take several months from applying for a job to interviews to actually starting in the role, because if they need to do DBS checks, if they need to get references, that can take weeks. So, you know, plan for a lead-in time of 3 months, even longer. So, you know, get on, apply, get help from us, but if you need it after you finish, you can access that as well. We do offer a drop-in service every day. So most people come and physically drop in, but you can also book a mini appointment online and find those in Handshake. If you need urgent help and you want to drop in, but you can't physically come to Preston, then you could always give us a call and see if we can fit you in to chat to the people and drop in. We want to offer the same availability for students in Burnley that we've got in Preston as well. So, you know, we do want to be here to help you. Sometimes we just need to think a bit more about using technology to do that in different ways. So if you need some help, if you think, well, I could come to drop in, but I'm not physically there, give us a call or book a mini appointment if there's one available, and then you can get that help as well. And longer appointments, 45-minute appointments, you would need to book those too online. So drop-in appointments are quick things, CVs, quick queries, quick questions, and then 45 minutes tend to be longer things. So if you want us to check an application before it gets sent, if you want us to check your statements you're writing ready for applications, practice interviews, they will be 45-minute appointments. And those are booked on the Handshake app. So I think most people tend to use the app nowadays. You just find the app on your app store or wherever, download it, log in with your UCLan email address. Don't be thrown, there's lots of American universities mentioned in the app as well, because it's used across the world. Use your UCLan email to set it up, and then you're ready to go. And you can use that to book appointments. The little picture there says employers want to meet you. We might have some events going on for NHS students that are listed on Handshake, but most of the jobs you would just go straight to the NHS areas for those or track. So if you don't want to use the apps, if you know your phone's just full of apps and you're thinking, no, I don't want to do that, then you can do the online version as well. There is a website, so that is Handshake UK. You do need to put UK for the online version. But the apps is good because it just gives you lots of notifications and it's quite convenient and easy then. So why users? So here are some feedback about why people have appreciated having appointments. We want to help you, we want to be practical. So there's no sort of judgment. Wherever you're up to is absolutely fine with us. We'll help you to move on. However stuck you are, however clueless you feel, there's probably somebody who's more stuck and more clueless at some point, and that's fine. We're there to help you. You know, we know a lot of people have never applied for a professional job before, and it takes a bit of adjustment. It takes time to know what you're doing, and we're here to help you with that. Also on Career Edge, there's some other information. So we've concentrated today on personal statements and supporting statements. But if you ever need a CV, there's a CV builder on Handshake. There's some good advice on interviews and general sort of careers advice on there about everything you would expect. We have the CV builder on there, which can be quite useful. Most applications for midwifery for your first job seem to be through track. You do the statement, you don't need a CV, but it's worth mentioning because you might need a CV if you want to do some further studies in the future, or if you put yourself forward for conferences and things. So it's worth just bearing in mind this is where to go if you need to do an up-to-date CV and make it of a professional standard. That's our contact details currently. Always happy to hear from you. So while I was starting this off, I said there's quite a lot to keep you busy in doing this, and obviously midwives have got their studies, they've got a lot going on. So how might you manage the jobs? How might you manage applying for jobs as efficiently as you can? And here's some ideas. So start checking jobs out so you know what to expect. Have a list of the competencies ready so you know what you need to be talking about and start thinking of examples. Even write some short paragraphs. So the skills that come up often, if you've got some paragraphs ready to talk about those things, then you might be able to transfer those directly into your statements. If you want to have a CV ready for other jobs, then great, have that ready. Have all your qualifications ready, know where your certificates are, know what the dates are to fill in track, get that together. Maybe spend a chunk of time every week doing on it. So rather than think, oh, I've got to find, a whole 3 or 4 hours to get stuck into it and I haven't got that time, just find half an hour and do some of it. And then next week, find half an hour, do something else and just, fit it in that way. Do ask for help from us. If you think I'm not sure, I'm stuck, ask for help. We're here to help you. There's no point being stuck and, spending ages trying to figure something out if you're stuck. We're here to help you. And make sure you know who you're putting down in terms of referees. Often it would be your personal tutor from your course, but talk to your course team about that and just check who they want you to put down. And anything else that helps you manage this that works for you is going to be a good thing. So, thank you for listening. I hope you found that useful. If you do need some help, I would be really pleased to see you. And the best of luck in your applications and your future careers as midwives.